This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is. Anthony Rivera here with you from the Subway to Shea podcast for a series preview. Yes. We will talk about what happened this past weekend on opening weekend, although I'm pretty sure everyone's tired of what transpired. But this is a series preview for the Detroit Tigers coming up on Monday. They'll be playing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And joining me today, a good friend to the Subway to Shea podcast, is Talkin Mets with Rob. Rob, man, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you, man.
I'm doing okay. The Mets didn't realize the season started 3 games ago, but apparently we did. We knew there was games, regular season games, but it's disappointing. But we're Met fans. We find a way to get through it and try to claw our way out of it.
Yeah, that's the only good part, right? This is the beginning of the season, so they can still overcome this, what's happened this past weekend. And if I guess you were living under a rock or not, but the Mets got swept opening weekend by the Milwaukee Brewers, and man, it wasn't just a sweep. It was kind of like I don't know, man. It just didn't look good at all. Like throughout the whole weekend. On top of that, you got to hear it from the Yankee fans now because they swept the Astros, and Juan Soto has just been such a blessing to them all weekend. And then you come here to Queens, and it's just a beating that the Mets took. And let's go right into the highlights of what happened. We're going to do a little bit of a recap here so you guys all can check out here. And, the Mets start 0-3 for the first time since 2014. Rhys Hoskins, a legal but dirty slide on Jeff McNeil. We'll get into that. Luis Severino got lit up. Hoskins crushed him on Saturday, 3 for 4, 1 home run, 4 RBIs. Tyler McGill leave this today, actually, with shoulder soreness, taking precautionary MRI. Francisco Alvarez got off to a hot start. Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, and Jeff McNeil were 3 for 36. And then we had the manager get thrown out of the game. He's suspended for 1 game. He missed today's game. And Yohan Ramirez, who appealed the game and was allowed to pitch today, he got suspended for 3 games. So there's a lot of frustration. The Mets starting off 0-3. I think one thing that I missed as well, Pete Alonso had a pretty good game, a pretty good series this weekend, and that's good to see with absolutely no protection because Jeff McNeil was apparently not available to bat and to hit. He had a frustrating series, especially, this whole thing with Rhys Hoskins. And if I miss anything, Rob, we'll get into, you let me know if there's something that you want to touch on from this series. But this whole series is going to be talked about because what happened with Rhys Hoskins. And obviously the slide I talked about, which was a dirty slide, although legal, that was a dirty slide to me. I mean, he slid closer to second base. Everything was in line, but we know that there's history between him and Jeff McNeil. And the fact that he slid that late, and you can even see in slow motion that he even rolled over the other side of his ankle without any awareness. And, it got McNeil hot, which, I kind of wish that maybe he would have pushed him or, threw his glove at him or something to kind of just get rid of this right away. That didn't happen. Rhys Hoskins goes to the dugout and then starts chirping from there as if he's some sort of tough guy, which, we definitely know he's not. And, this thing traveled all weekend. And then we go into Saturday, and Rhys Hoskins basically bitch slapped the New York Mets. I mean, 3 for 4, 1 home run, 3 RBIs. I mean, the fans were booing him like crazy, and Severino throws meatballs at him, and he freaking destroys him. Like the whole game was an absolute mess. McNeil comes up with the bases loaded, pops out. There goes that. They tried to throw behind him, which, if you're going to throw at him, and obviously there was going to be a suspension, right? We knew if like one of the relievers threw, they were going to get suspended. If you're going to throw at him and get suspended, you better make sure you hit him. That's all I gotta say. I don't really condone the hitting anymore. Like, I don't really care if they hit him or not. But if you are gonna get suspended, you better make sure you're gonna hit him, because the thing that the Mets need to do is to come up on offense and beat them back and win the game. And they can't do that right now. There's something missing on this team to me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's very frustrating. What was your take on this whole situation?
Yeah, the Reese Hoskins things was, it was interesting to me because, like, I would say it was borderline illegal. I think it was more illegal than if you read the whole letter of the law. There is a lot to look at when it comes to he had a slide. You have to slide directly feet first. If you're going feet first, directly into the bag, and if you go over the bag, it's for the most part, as long as you're within the vicinity and still touching the bag, it's illegal play. But the problem was, if you really go back and look at it, Jeff McNeil's foot was on the back part of the bag, which he's allowed to do, and it's even further from he gave all the room in front of second base with Reese Hoskins. He gave him the room to slide, so there wasn't no anywhere blocking the second base or anything like that. And McNeil did everything right. The problem was it was a late slide. He slid to the side of the bag, so it was late on the side. And technically, if you really want to look at it, the last part of the rule says that you have to slide directly into the bag, especially if you're going feet first. You have to slide into the bag, and then if you go over the bag, as long as you're still touching the bag, it's okay. But the problem is he slid from the side of the bag, and the only way to get to McNeil was to go to the side of the bag and through his feet, and that's how he hit McNeil. Because if he would have went through the bag straight on, he probably would have missed Jeff McNeil, but he probably would have went between Jeff McNeil's leg. So he was clearly aiming for Jeff McNeil. Like, it was clear. But as quickly as they reviewed it, which is the other problem that I have with Major League Baseball, I mean, I never saw a quicker review since review became a thing in Major League Baseball. That was literally, I actually took a sip of my drink and they already finished the review. When was the last time you saw Major League Baseball come back with a review that quickly? Like,
And he obstructed earlier on in the game, DJ Stewart, and they did not call it. And then after the game, they're like, "Oh, like, come on, guys, like, get it together."
Yeah, and it's not saying, oh, Met fans are saying, oh, Major League Baseball is against the Mets. We all know it. Like, if you take your bias out of it and just pay attention ever since Cohen took over the team, Major League Baseball, and especially with Buck Showalter in his first year, when he was getting all the reviews right and he was basically telling the umpires the rules, and that was a whole big thing. Ever since then, Major League Baseball has been against the Mets with this stuff. And again, I'm not trying to nitpick here when it comes to Major League Baseball, but it seems like they're doing everything they can to go against the Mets. And again, it's not like the Mets play has helped the situation, because the Brewers outplayed in every aspect of the game: defense, offense, bullpen. Even though the Mets bullpen was pretty decent, the Brewers bullpen was better. Every aspect of the game was better with the Brewers. And that's what really annoys me, because I think the Mets on paper are better than the Brewers. The problem is the Brewers outperform in every aspect of the game, and that's what's so frustrating. Like, they literally still feel like they're in spring training, but they played at Citi Field. That's the biggest problem I have with this team, and it's worrisome because Severino, who was lights out in spring, 2 or 3 miles an hour less than what he was throwing in spring. He was throwing between 94 and 96 when he was throwing 98 and 99 consistently. And Jeff McNeil, I'm trying to give him a little bit of time because he came back late in spring, but Lindor, notorious slow starter, it's not helping the team. Besides Alonso and Alvarez and even Marte, everybody else is lost. And that's the biggest problem. Nimmo's trying to hit the ball 450 feet every time he's at the plate now. He's striking out at the same clip he was last year right now. And you just hope that they can get together, because if they lose a series against the Tigers, you're going to be going 1-5, going on the road, and you see the road in April. It's Atlanta, it's the Dodgers, it's the Giants. We can have, instead of a June swoon, we can have an April swoon, and we might be talking about 2025 in May rather than in July. That's the problem.
Yeah, and you can't fall back too much here because you go into Cincinnati with a young Cincinnati, which is one of those teams I'm going to be on the lookout for. Then you got a 4-game series. I think it's 4-game series against Atlanta
Yeah.
coming up, and that's the House of Horrors. It was last season. It was such a struggle trying to play against those Braves, and man, I'm telling you, yeah, what we saw from spring, I think we were kind of mesmerized. I told you this off the air, kind of a little bit mesmerized by how well the pitching was doing, because that was the biggest thing coming into this season, right? They needed good starting pitching. They got it during spring, and I know spring is not like the end all be all, but you still need to see results, and we did. We saw some good results from the starting pitching. We saw some good results from the bullpen, which has been really good this whole weekend. But the hitting kind of got lost in the shuffle because they weren't really doing anything all spring hitting wise, except for Francisco Alvarez, who got off to the hot start. So, man, it's really frustrating to see this start from the Mets. And, I know it's only the opening series, but I don't want to say it, but like, man, it just looked lifeless, man. It looks like the fact that they lost, I think bothers me less. I think the thing that bothers me more is that I'm seeing patterns that I saw from this team from the last 2 years. I don't want to say there's no sense of fight, but like, man, do they give in to like Reese Hoskins? Like I said, he basically bitched the crap out of them. Like he pretty much owned everything there, and they couldn't come back from it. They at that 8th inning where he got where he did the where he hit McNeil, they could not find any source of they went down in order the last 2 innings, and it was frustrating, that game. And then you go to Tuesday, they try to mount a comeback, but it's always the comeback too short. I want to get past that. I want to get past these, they can't finish off the comeback. We need to move on from that. Like coming back and it being 7-6. Yeah, they came back, but like, man, they couldn't finish the job. Like we got to get to a point where they can finish the job. And you mentioned their defense. I mean, Milwaukee's defense. Like this is what David Stearns built, man. Right? I mean, he built this type of team. So hopefully that's something we can see in the future with this Mets team, whether, it's with the same players or, they infuse some of the youth like the Luisano Acuñas, the Drew Gilberts of the world, even the Ryan Clifford. We'll see what happens throughout this season. And as we continue on under this tenure for David Stearns, shout out to all the people watching right now, 53 watching live with us. We really appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribing to Subway to Shea on YouTube. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribing to Talking Mets with Rob. And got great content over there on his channel. He does a lot of live streams. You do all the pre-games, right? You've been doing all the pre-games daily. Do you do post-show too?
No, just pre-games at the moment. I'll be doing series recaps starting after the Tiger series as well. So we'll be putting that up there as well.
Yeah, make sure you're watching that. And his partner, CP, who is in the chat. We got Duran Rivera. We got Lane Kerner, Jeff Cohen, good friend to the show, Junior Swingman. Matt Ibanez from the Till Mets Do Us Part podcast is in here. Make sure you're following him as well. And there's a lot of good people in the chat. I saw some good here we go. This is what I like from Junior Swingman right here. The Mets need to change this passive good guy act and become scumbags and put the league on notice. I don't really condone the hitting anymore. Like I was all in, like, yeah, hit him, go after him. But at the end of the day, the team has to start hitting, start scoring runs, and start winning games. Like Luis Severino needed to get this guy out, and he couldn't do it. And then you have, Yohan Ramirez throw behind him. And, he gets himself suspended. Then we come back Sunday. What we saw Sunday from Yohan Ramirez in his at-bat again, in his pitch sequence against Reese Hoskins, that's all that needed to be done.
Correct.
Brush back, strike him out, done. The story's over. We're finished with it. Now this thing is going to linger because, the Mets haven't, showed that fight in them yet. Or as I think it was Verdugo called Juan Soto, that dog in him. We haven't seen that dog in the Mets just yet. Yeah. So, there does need to be some fire, that there's something missing from this team. I don't know what it is, but until they find that, we're going to continue to see games like this, which is frustrating to say. We also got Carlos Ramos in here. What's up, my friend? Appreciate you chiming in, trying to get through some of these and see, because every time I try to go through these comments, it's always so much to do and to keep up with them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. But what are your thoughts on what Junior Swingman said and there needing to be, this, like, do you feel like there's something missing from this team?
Yeah, I've said it for a while, and I got killed on my channel. Even during the whole offseason. Look, the label of this team is the softness of this team, the mental softness of this team. When they get punched in the mouth, they run and hide. They don't fight back. You see it occasionally where they might get a game out here and there where you see a little toughness, and then they get hit in the mouth again, and that's it. It's like they get that second sucker punch or that uppercut that they didn't see coming, and they're out for the count. And that's the problem that I have with this team. And I keep on running back to the same problem with this team. You can change the people around the core, and if you're still having problems losing, you're still having the mental toughness question of this team, who has been consistent on this team? The core of this team, the core that has been getting extensions, right? The Mets traded for Lindor, got gave him an extension, re-signed Brandon Nimmo. Then you extended Jeff McNeil, and now we're talking about Pete Alonso. If you give Pete Alonso a deal, you're telling me that you're going to war with this core that you believe can take us to the promised land, because everybody else around them is added to this core. This core is losing right now. This core that's been around 5, 6, 7 years now, the Jeff McNeils, the Alonsos, the Nimmos, and I include Lindor in that now since he's going to be around for probably the rest of his career. It's been a losing team. And at some point, you can't keep on rolling out the same core and losing year after year, regardless of who you put around them, because you can't give the core the credit when you're winning, but when you're losing, it's everybody else's fault but their fault. And that's the biggest problem that I have with this core, right? And when people are like, oh, you do have to sign Alonso, take the emotional part out of this and realize if the Mets have another losing season, are you not going to blame the core, regardless of what they do? Because there's a lot of added stats to this core that when the Mets are out of it in July and they have good July, August, and September when there's no pressure on, and they pad their stats, and then they show me 2023 stats and say, wow, look what Alonso did, look what Lindor did. Yeah, but most of that was when the Mets were out of it. Where was it in September of 2022 when Marte went down and the core was nowhere to be found in September? That's the problem that I have with this core. The fact of the matter is this core has shown me nothing. And I know a lot of people disagree, and it's understandable. But I want everybody to take their emotion out of it towards a player. Whoever your favorite player is, if it's McNeil, if it's Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is they can pad their stats all they want because individual stats are nice. But if you're not helping the rest of the team as a whole, then what are you really doing besides padding your own stats? Because teams realize that if a core is not working and the core is rotten, you have to change it. And there's one guy you might be able to change who is coming up on free agency after this year. And not saying that Pete Alonso's a bad player. He's not, obviously. He's our best player. But the problem is sometimes you have to make a drastic change if this core is not helping you win. And it sucks to say, but that doesn't mean that if Alonso's not here next year that you're not going to win. Because we've seen this all the time with teams, right? Bryce Harper leads the Nationals. They win the World Series the following year. Now, I'm not saying if you get rid of Alonso, the Mets are going to win the World Series the following year. But sometimes you have to make a drastic change that has not been working with this core for 5 to 6 years now. And I think that's the problem that people don't want to talk about. And then when somebody like myself and a couple of people on X bring it up, that maybe this core isn't exactly going to take you to the promised land. You can't wait until all these guys' primes are done and you look at it and you had one or two maybe playoff appearances with no World Series. Then what are you going to say? You're going to blame everybody else? You're going to blame Sandy Olson. You're going to blame Brody Van Wagenen, Billy Epler. What are you going to do? Blame David Stearns? Blame the core, because the core of this team gets the credit when they're winning, but nobody wants to blame the core. It's like they're afraid to blame the core. And that's what I get frustrated with a lot of Met fans. I love you guys. I see you guys all the time at Citi Field and on the road. I love hanging out with you guys, and you guys come up to me, and I know they come up to Ant and everybody else that is content creators. We love this team, but sometimes you have to realize that maybe this core isn't it for this organization. It's just maybe there's a change that has to be made, and the Mets are telling you at the moment that McNeil, Nimmo, and Lindor is the core going into the future. But that's why I believe the Mets have not re-signed or extended Pete Alonso yet, because if they have another losing season, are you not going to blame this core? You're going to blame everybody else. We're going to have scapegoats in Severino. We're going to have scapegoats in Manaea or Marte or everybody else, Bader. Are we going to scapegoat everybody else and not blame the core? Because that's what it has to come down to. If you're not going to pick on the core when things are going bad, then what are you doing? Because you're just replacing the guys around him with other guys. It's not going to make them any better. They have their stats. The individual part is not the problem. But maybe as a team itself, it just doesn't work, Anthony.
Yeah, I think the fact of the matter is that if this team is not playing well this season, if we get something similar to what happened last year where this team is out of it by July, the Mets will probably trade Pete Alonso. And honestly, they're going to have a hard time next offseason, no matter how much money Steve Cohen has. They're going to have a hard time trying to sign free agents because they've shown like nothing that this team is turning a corner, right? Like, if you're not playing well, yeah, maybe the money can get one or two players here. But if you're trying to build this team, the top free agents are only going to come here if you overpay them. Because one, they got to pay for New York taxes, and then they're playing for a team that's probably not going to do well and does not reside in the Bronx, which has the lineage and the history and all that mumbo jumbo. The Mets don't have that. The Mets need to build this winning culture, and they have yet to do that. I mean, I really do hope this turns around this season, and I still believe, I still got the faith. But yeah, man, it is frustrating to see. I don't even know if I consider Jeff McNeil as a part of the core. I know he signed the deal for 4 years, but I honestly, what I've seen on Twitter, a lot of people are over it. A lot of people are over Jeff McNeil. I like Jeff McNeil, but man, I would have loved to have seen him, do something with Rhys Hoskins instead of just chirping. I mean, all bark, no bite.
Something with the bat. Like Rhys Hoskins is Rhys Hoskins, but there was so many opportunities he had in this series, and he did nothing with the bat. And that's the other frustrating thing, because Jeff McNeil is a guy that can play multiple positions, but if he doesn't bat 300, he's very useless for a team like the New York Mets, because we rely on him batting 300 and being on base for our run producers like Lindor and Alonso, which him batting cleanup makes no sense, but that's beside the point. You got run producers, and with those run producers, you need them to bring in guys like Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil's got getting on base, and 275 in nowadays of baseball is a good average. But for Jeff McNeil, for this particular Mets team over the last couple of years, if Jeff McNeil's not batting 300, this lineup does have a problem, because not enough guys get on base on this team. And that's the other problem. Like, it's amazing that Alonso and Lindor can pad their stats late in the year to get, 30 home runs, 40 home runs plus 100 RBIs with a team that on base percentage is absolutely dog crap, to be honest with you. And that's along with Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil needs to stop batting over 300, because, and you're right, Ant, Jeff McNeil could be gone. Like if the Mets aren't doing well, he might be gone at the deadline. And you know what? I don't think he's going to be here after this season anyway, regardless of how the Mets season goes. I feel like it's like a Daniel Murphy situation, even though Daniel Murphy's in Mets lore because of what he did in 2015. I think it's a Daniel Murphy situation. I think that they wanted to change things around. And I think Jeff McNeil is one of those guys as well. And I'm okay with that. Like, you got to, 500 shortstops in the minor leagues. Everybody can play second base, I think that the way David Stearns did it in Milwaukee, how if you don't do your job, you will be replaced. He already showed you that, right? Vientos lost every spot he was able to get on the roster on opening day. He lost the third base job, lost the DH job, and even lost the bench job over Zach Short. So I see it as this. If you don't perform, regardless of, besides the long-term deals that are on this team, probably Nimmo, Lindor, and Diaz, everybody else is expendable, to be honest with you. And if you're not doing your job, you will be replaced by either some guy in the minor leagues or somebody outside the organization, because David Stearns did that throughout his career as GM with the Brewers. You didn't perform, he would find somebody outside the organization or in the minor leagues to replace you to do the job. He's not afraid to do it. And they already showed you with replacing Zach Short with replacing Brett Beatty with Zach Short in game 2, even though it was against a lefty. You don't do matchups game 2. It just showed Brett Beatty was lifeless in game 1, and his demeanor and his at-bats were terrible. So they gave Zach Short a chance, who had a good spring. I think David Stearns is not playing games here. If you don't do your job, regardless of your name and the money you make and the fan fair with a player, you will be gone and you will be replaced. And I appreciate that, because too many times with this Met organization, it seemed like there's favoritism here. Oh, we can't get rid of this guy. We have to keep this guy. Like, he's a veteran. No. Jeff McNeil, you suck. I don't care if you've been in the league 6 years, 9 years. You're getting replaced by an Acuna or a Jet Williams or somebody outside the organization. And I would be fine with that, because you got to earn your job on this team. You got to earn a spot on this roster. This hasn't been the case. Like, Vogelback didn't earn his spot last year. Billy Upton kept on doing it because why? He brought him in. And David Stearns doesn't have no favoritism, and I love that. And it seems like Carlos Mendoza is on that same philosophy with David Stearns.
Rosie K's in agreement with you on the core of this team being the issue. Yeah, man. I have like really no words for, what's been going on with them and the struggles that's been. So, they really are going to have to pick it up, because we're counting on them to deliver these wins for this team. We know that, like you said, Francisco Lindor is a notoriously slow starter. Going to have to see some pickup. He even said it during the post-game press conference, which, I had to raise an eye a little bit, because he said something about they're still trying to find their footing. And like, to me, it's like, man, that was supposed to be done in spring. Like, you find your footing in spring and you get ready to go. I have no worries about Francisco Lindor. I know he's going to have a really good year outside of an injury, which I hope never happens. But I think Francisco Lindor is fine. I think Pete Alonso obviously is fine. I know Brandon Nimmo, he'll be fine. McNeil is a concern for me, especially like you said, he started off rough. To close out the whole Rhys Hoskins thing, a great comment by Ibby, and we talked about it. You want to shut them up, strike out Hoskins, beat them on the scoreboard, show life where it matters, and that's the win column. All this coupled with an L is just And yeah, he's right. That's how you have to, take care of that business. Jeff Cohen saying, Sevy was victimized by the Zach Short non-play, and today McGill was by Beatty not catching a ball. Defense matters. And defense does matter, because this is what was being preached to us by David Stearns all offseason, is that he wants run prevention. He wants defense. And we got to see it this weekend. We just got to see it by the other team he created. And that's the Milwaukee Brewers, which is, it's a little bit frustrating. One thing that I think I mentioned really briefly was the shoulder injury to Tyler McGill. And he was actually going to come out and pitch the 5 innings, John Gibbons said, but ended up they took him out. He was feeling a little bit of tenderness. So, you know what? As Douglas Barnes says, Budo going to get that start. I think he will. Yeah. If Tyler McGill is out for a long extended time, Jose Budo is first on the, line of defense of starting pitchers. And I think he pitched Saturday
Yeah, he's online
And
for Miguel's start.
right. So perfect. It works out perfectly there. And Carlos Ramos, good friend of mine who's in the chat. We talked about this off air, and he might have a point here. He said, "Are we going to accept McGill is not a starter and will never be a starter? Because he wants to put him in the bullpen as either a setup guy or maybe a long man." And I'm thinking that might be the best role for him.
Yes.
He pitched good during the spring, but the pitch count was up. Right, the same thing that we saw today, right? The pitch count was up. It was taking him a while to put away batters. Same issue he was having last year. He's just doing it a little better this year and throughout the spring. But, Jose Budo was lights out all spring. And I think it's finally time to give him an opportunity. If this doesn't work out with Tyler McGill this season, I wouldn't be opposed to putting him in the bullpen because you know what? The Mets are not going to sign every free agent pitcher out there to major deals. They're going to have to do some of this stuff from within so that they can, pay Pete Alonso or,
Yep.
do their best to try to go after Juan Soto, who I think the Yankees are going to end up retaining anyway. What are your thoughts on McGill and what you saw from him today? And is it time to, think about, putting him in the bullpen at some point?
Yeah, me and CP talked about it today about the pregame that the biggest problem with Tyler McGill was he doesn't have that put away pitch, which extends at bats, which increases his pitch count. And I thought that split change that he or that sport ball that he learned over the offseason was supposed to be that pitch that he learned to be that put away pitch. And at least today it wasn't. And that's concerning because he has the stuff, but when you don't have that put away pitch, you're constantly gonna have long at bats. You're gonna have that increased pitch count, which is not gonna keep you in games long, which is gonna hurt our bullpen and the usage of our bullpen. We used our bullpen a ton in 3 games already, and that's a problem. And yet, I think Tyler McGill could be. The problem is, he gets hurt by pitching every 5th day. Can you trust him to go out there, pitch 3 innings, have a couple of days off, and then come back out and be as sharp and stay healthy? That's the other thing as well. I'll try it. Listen, I'm all on board to try everything. At this point, this team is up in the air right now, and the way they're performing, even though the bullpen has been good, if hopefully his shoulder's okay, but this is a constant thing with Tyler McGill now, with his injuries now. Ever since he had, even in 2022 when he was pitching well, he still had a little bit of an injury situation going on. And then it trickled down into 23 and now in 24. Jose Buto, next man up though, right? He performed extremely well in spring training. In years past, it probably would have been somebody who didn't deserve it. Jose Buto wouldn't even got a chance probably until, he wasn't even ready yet. So to see that Jose Buto is probably going to get the nod, and I think the Mets set it up perfectly. And I think they knew. I don't even think it was injury related. I think that if they saw Tyler McGill not perform, is why they set up Jose Buto the pitch directly in line with Tyler McGill. Because if McGill didn't do the job, they would have flip flopped. McGill would have probably went back to the minors and worked on things, and Buto would have filled the rotation spot with Jose Buto. And I think that would have been the case. And I think that's why they lined it up that way. And it seems like a perfect scenario, but I think it was planned that way just in case Tyler McGill didn't perform, not basically because of injury. I think if he didn't perform the first 3 starts of the year, I think Jose Buto would have been up anyway. But because of the injury and the MRI that he got, now Jose Buto is next in line, and the Mets set it up perfectly as their plan.
Yeah, this is really the last stand to me. I don't know if you feel the same way for Tyler McGill, right? This is he has been given this opportunity with Kodai Senga out to kind of grab one of these rotation spots. And when Kodai Senga comes back, they may go to a 6-man, so he'll still be a part of it. But if he doesn't grab this is a big opportunity to audition for next season and be that guy in the rotation. And if he doesn't, I'm with Carlos. I think it might be time to switch him over to the bullpen. You got Jose Budo, you got Christian Scott in the wings, Mike Vassell, who I think had a rough start today. You got Dom Hamill, the kids, Joey Lucchesi. So there are other options out there. to, put in this rotation. Not to mention that next year they might try to go after one of the free agents. Obviously, Corbin Burns is one. You got Max Fried is another one. There's going to be options to get at least one starter. I think they have to add a top line starter to go with Kodai Senga, and the rest you can fill with a Budo. You can put one of the kids in there. You can re-sign if one of these guys pitch well, whether it's a Hauser, Manaya, or even Severino, who I'm not going to give up on just yet. But if one of them pitches well, you can sign them to another deal and not have to spend so crazily on this. We'll see what happens with Tyler McGill. But, it's right now for him. He's really on his last legs for this rotation. Brooklyn Junie says they all slump together, need a spark in this offense. Hopefully JD will help. Yeah, I agree. You put JD behind Pete. In all reality, we all want to see someone back up Pete Alonso. But honestly, he doesn't really ever need it because he still bangs out 46 home runs a year and over 120 RBIs. But to have someone like JD behind him on his walk year, I expect to see a different Pete Alonso, a more, polished, maybe 2022 with the average, and then, that rookie kind of 50 home run type season from Pete moves everybody else down in the order. I would even consider putting Jeff McNeil 8th or 9th, go with Bader and
he should be
having,
there now, to be honest.
Yeah, he probably could be there. Bader didn't have a good weekend, but his swings, I thought, were a lot better than what I saw from Jeff McNeil out there. And even a Brett Beatty, who did hit the pinch hit home run and had a hit yesterday, but just the swings and how hard Bader was hitting looked better. He had a stupid running, got himself tossed out of second base, which was frustrating to see, but what can you do, right? I mean, it was just a weekend full of disaster. I want to get your thoughts before we move on to our series preview. I know there's been a lot of recap and rewind from what happened this weekend. I want to know your thoughts on Carlos Mendoza this weekend. A lot of fans frustrated with some of the moves. I will say this, and I don't know if this was just a Gibby move or just the team move. Putting Johan Ramirez in there for 3 innings today, I thought was a pretty solid move, knowing the fact that he's going to unappeal his suspension, take the 3 games off and rest now after pitching 3 pretty decent innings.
Yeah. And I think they already got word from MLB that he's going to be suspended to 3 games. I don't think they're going to change that. And I think the Mets know that. I think they had probably a pretty good idea that Ramirez was going to get that 3-game suspension regardless of the appeal. And I think that's why they pitched him 3 innings in a row, because you're not going to be able to use him after today. So I think that was a good way to go about it. It saved your bullpen, and Ramirez pitched pretty well. So I ain't gonna lie. I like what Mendoza has done. Now, I don't think he's directly involved with the lineup 100%, because analytics and the front office now all work together on a lineup. But I know people were killing Mendoza with the lineup, but I don't think he actually does it on his own, because the Jeff McNeil, again, makes no sense in the cleanup spot. I like the game 2 lineup more than I like game 1 and game 3. So yeah, I don't right now with Mendoza. I like that he came out and protected his player. He got thrown out of the game. He got into the face of the umpire. I like that. So he shows a little bit of fire, a lot different than what Buck showed last year. And I was a big supporter of Buck, but let's be honest, the lack of passion from Buck, it's nice to see, and it was refreshing because the Mets did make a comeback in game 2 after Mendoza got thrown out of the game. So I think that little bit of a manager spark and energy trickled down to the team. And that sometimes your team needs that. Shows that your manager has their back. And Mendoza showed that. Again, we're going to complain about Mendoza probably at some point when he puts in a pitcher, at any moment, and he doesn't do well. And we're like, oh, why would you bring him in? I.e. Drew Smith. Because, there'll be a time when Drew Smith, hangs a slider and gives up a lead, right? It might be something like that. So at the moment, I think Carlos Mendoza has been fine. I think the lineup they're playing with right now, knowing that JD Martinez is coming in about, I hope, in a week, that would be nice, because we can't have JD Martinez trickle in in the Atlanta series as his first games as a Met, and things are still going bad, and then expect him to be the savior or be that savior and protection for Pete Alonso. That's not fair to JD Martinez, even as the established veteran he is. So this team's got to pick it up regardless of who anybody wants to blame at this point. You want to blame Jeff McNeil, Carlos Mendoza, McGill, the pitching rotation that didn't really pitch that well in the opening series. The fact of the matter is, everybody's got to play better. A lot of these guys are on one-year deals. They're playing for another contract as well. So it's not just, the guys who are going to be here for a long time. It's the guys that are playing for contracts. And somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to put this team on their back. We always talking about who's the leader of this team. Some people think it's Alonso. Some people think it's Lindor. Some people think it's nobody. So somebody's got to pick this team on their back and say, I got you. I'm going to take you and help you guys get this win or, take this series. The fact of the matter is, somebody's got to step up, put this team on their shoulder, and win ball games for us. Like Juan Soto, and I hate to bring up the Yankees, but we all watched it. Juan Soto basically won, and Cabrera, was it Cabrera? Like the other guy, whoever it was, the utility
at their
guy,
base, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Cabrera.
Him and Juan Soto are single-handedly winning games for the Yankees when Aaron Judge is batting under 100. But nobody's talking about that. It would be a big story if the Yankees were losing, but because Juan Soto and the Yankees are winning, Aaron Judge is getting pushed to the side as a backstory because he's been terrible in the 4 games. But because Juan Soto is basically winning games for the Yankees and the Yankees are winning and swept the Astros, nobody's talking about the Aaron Judge. But because the Mets are losing, now everybody's to blame. Everybody's getting picked out. And the reason why they blame, everybody has their own person to blame, right? And I know you might have a person. I have a person. Matt.
Carlos has the blame the dance crew, Carlos says.
Hell yeah, let's go. Hey, listen, you gave people jobs. I'm all on board with that. I don't care for it. It doesn't look. I do my scorebook. I do that stuff. So I don't really pay much attention to the Queen's crew, even though it's great that you gave people jobs and, some people might like it, some people may not. It is what it is. That, commercial entertainment does not do nothing for me either way. I'm either getting some food, checking out my scorebook, finishing that up. So it doesn't really bother me, but hey, blame who you want to blame because we're probably all right at this point, regardless of who you bring up. The fact of the matter is, where is the guy to put this team on their shoulders? We complained about this in 2022, where in September, nobody picked this team up. When Marte went down, the core of the team was still there. Somebody had to pick this team on their back. In 2022, 2023, I think it was a disaster waiting to happen with the Diaz injury and the Scherzer situation, the Verlander situation, and everything far in between with bad seasons from other guys. The fact of the matter is, where is the star on this team? Regardless of who you want it to be, Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, who a lot of people thought Nimmo was going to be the next leader. Somebody's got to put this team on their back. You can't have 1 for 12s for Nimmo and McNeil's and Alonso and Lindor.
3 for 30 freaking 6 from 3 of them.
Yes, and here's the problem. Nobody's really talking about that. Everybody's blaming, look what Beta didn't do nothing. Look, we're talking about it, right? The other guys that are irrelevant to this lineup. We're blaming all of these guys. But the 3 for 33 from your core guys, I don't care who is on your team, regardless around them. You got to have your stars perform when your team is not doing well. Those guys are the guys that you're counting on the most to win you ball games. You can't be looking at Marte or Bader or Beatty, even Alvarez at this point yet. It's not fair to them, who are the other guys of this lineup. When the Mets win, oh, look, the core, great job. But if the Mets would have took this series against the Brewers and took 2 out of 3, I guarantee you would hear, oh, look at Alonso, look at Lindor, look at McNeil, look at Nimmo, and nobody else would be getting credit. And that's the biggest issue. Until we start looking at the major problem, it's the core that has not put their team on their shoulders and take them for a ride in the W column. Until that happens, we're going to have the same problems and the same conversations year after year, month after month, and it has not changed, Anthony.
Rosie K says the Mets have underperformed year after year. Why are we expecting different results? Rob is asking for someone to put the team on their back, but I don't think that the Mets have that player. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. I don't know. We haven't seen it. That's the problem, right? We keep asking for these moments, and that's why the losing this weekend did not bother me as much as not seeing that, that fight back, that I wanted to see. That's all I wanted was a little bit of fight back from this team. And it's like, oh, we still haven't found our footing yet. Well, you better find it a little bit quicker, man, because, you can't, keep losing. You can't have a terrible homestand here. Now, if they go in and then they sweep Detroit, well, I guess now it's probably a different story. And when I come back here on Thursday to do another series preview for the Cincinnati Reds, we're talking a totally different story. Duran Rivera, great comment. I've been thinking about this, all day today. Willie Randolph was a rookie manager. You remember when they started off 0-5? They actually their first game of the season was the most complete, perfect first game I remember. Pedro pitched like 8 innings. Carlos Beltran hit a home run, and the team was off and running, right? I think it was like 6-2, and then Braden Looper blew it in the 9th, and they lost, and then they went on to lose 5 more games. Ended up managing to 83 and 79. So, right, anything is possible for Mendoza. I'm not putting blame on him. When first off, he doesn't even play on the field. He can only set the lineup and try to motivate these guys. But if they're playing the same way like they played under Buck, at some point they have to take a little bit of responsibility for the way things have gone down. And as we move
last year, and it was more about Buck than the players, and that's the other problem that this fan base has. And then it's not just the Met fan base; it's other fan bases as well with their own teams, right? They pinpoint one person to blame as a scapegoat, and everybody else gets away with basically murder. And last year, it was all about Buck. Oh, this team is not doing anything because of Buck. That's all it was. It was, let's blame the veterans and the old guys on the team in Buck and Scherzer and Verlander. But again, we go back to the same core guys again, because they're the ones still here while we're losing. It's always another scapegoat. And you know what? It's got to come to a head at some point. This core, I love this core, right? Most of these guys are homegrown. Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo. I want these guys to be their entire career and be successful. But you have to take the fandom out of it and realize that this might not be the core. Like if it takes McNeil and Alonso off this team to maybe open up the floodgates of Nimmo and Lindor, maybe that's what it takes. Maybe it takes the infusion of top talent that actually proves to be top talent, not a Brett Beatty who is still trying to find his way. Maybe it is Gilbert and Acuna who provides a spark, who are the next big prospects that actually do something. Maybe they are the next Ryder and Reyes. Maybe it's the next Doc or Strawberry. I don't want to put them at that out yet and put that pressure on, but maybe it is. Maybe that type of change is needed, because we're blaming the wrong people here. Are they a part of the problem that I just spoke about? Sure. But to say that they're their main problem and that's the only problem, and continue to blame everybody else other than the core, it's going to be the problem over and over again, because the emotions as fans, which is understandable, gets the best of them. Like, oh, how can you replace 45 and 100? Maybe with 2 guys that hit 25 home runs and 70 RBIs. That's how you might do it. It might extend the lineup a little bit better than waiting for Pete Alonso to hit a 3-run homer, and you have 2 other guys that can bat 250 with 25 home runs and 75 RBIs, and you replace that production with 2 guys instead of 1. It might not sound great on paper, but it might be better overall. You just don't know until you mix it up. But we're on year 6 with Alonso, 7 with Nimmo, 5 with McNeil. It's getting to the point, Ant, where I'm getting frustrated. Now I'm getting frustrated with the entire core, because I'm seeing losing from this team. And the main culprits that are continuing to be here with all the changes in GM, changes in managers, changes with other guys around the core, and we're still losing. So who's to blame, man? I mean, do you blame? So are you starting to blame and lean towards blaming the core a little bit now, regardless of the individual stats? Because I think a lot of these guys paired their stats in months that really don't matter for this team anymore. Right? In June last year, look at the core 4 guys that I talked about: Nimmo, McNeil, Alonso, and Lindor. June, there were terrible months. Terrible. Go back to September 2022. Look at the core stats of that month when the Mets struggled and lost the division. It was those core guys that were nowhere to be found. I don't want to hear about July to September or late September where they're padding their stats and telling me that their stats, look at their stats. How can you replace that? Well, if you don't do it between April and June or before the trade deadline and do it after when there's no pressure on you, then what are we really talking about here? Because I just don't get it anymore, because I'm getting frustrated with the core and I'm trying to avoid that because I like these guys. But the fact is, they're not doing the job. Stop blaming everybody else around them and start blaming this core who still hasn't proven to be a winning core. And that's the problem that I continue to go back to. I really am.
There is definitely a point to that, because, you know, like you said, we've seen a lot of these guys in this roster for a long time, and, you know, when it doesn't show success, you know, then it becomes an issue, right? And we know that Alonso can be clutch. We know that Lindor can be clutch. Same thing with Nimmo. But man, there's some games where you really need it. Like, you really need that monster game, and sometimes it just doesn't come through. And you know, you have to wonder. I've been thinking about, like, you have to wonder about the mentality, you know, of the team and where it's at. It took a huge hit in that Atlanta series into that San Diego series where they just got punched. They got punched in the mouth from Atlanta. Joe Musgrove punched them and knocked them out of the playoffs. No response. You know, they got hit all year in 2022. Okay, fine. Go into 2023, they get hit again. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
You know, you go to this past weekend with the Reese Hoskins thing. Not only does, you know, he chirp at you from the dugout and almost injure one of your players, but then he comes back, responds, and takes all the booing like a heel and shoves it back down their throats, and nothing happened. We're to the point where we had to wait for Yohan Ramirez, you know, to throw that pitch and not even hit him and get suspended for it. Like,
Yep.
you know,
And that's the problem. That's the problem.
it's such a frustrating thing to watch. And I think that has been, you know, more important. Junior Swingman agrees. They have never recovered. They haven't. Because I remember the first series of the 2022 season against Washington, where Lindor got hit in the mouth and Buck came out guns a-blazing and was ready to fight himself. The whole team came out ready to fight.
Yep.
And ever since then, that team disappeared. Absolutely disappeared. I don't know if it was because they were playing well, but, you know, Alonso gets hit in the hand. Marte gets hit in the hand. All these guys are getting hit. And there's, you know, like, no response at all from these guys.
Yeah.
And it is frustrating to see. And I hope somehow they overcome this. We've been in here for 54 minutes so far, have not done a series preview. Are you still good to go for a little while longer? We got a lot of people.
Absolutely, man. Listen, there is so much to talk about, and yes, I'm here as long as you need me here, because look, and this is the problem. We spent 54 minutes basically breaking down every aspect of the core in these 3 games because there was so much to talk about because of the fact of all the things that went wrong in just 3 games. We still got 159 of these bad boys to go, and yet we're talking about this for almost an hour now because there's so much to talk about. You can bring up a name and talk 20 minutes about them. That you can't have Yohan Ramirez stepping up for the team. It's cool, but it shouldn't have been him. It should have been maybe an Ottavino. It should have been somebody who's been there a while to step up. And that's the other problem I have. Like, it's like everybody who's a name on this team hides behind somebody who's irrelevant, like a Johan Ramirez, who's getting suspended, who took one for the team here. And it's like, wait, that should be one of our big guys, somebody who matters that should have done that. Don't do it while we're down a couple of runs late in a ball game, and it didn't make sense to do it then. It's so frustrating, man. But I'm
Well,
here with you.
Junior Swingman's right though. It should have been McNeil. Whether he pushed him down, whether he, I don't know. Maybe he should have pushed back. Kind of like that play in Toronto with Cabrera. I don't know if you saw that play in Toronto the same day, where the guy got up on him and he pushed him right back. Like, okay, then it's over.
Is that Rhys Hoskins never actually looked at Jeff McNeil. He was on the floor and then just started walking back to the dugout. And then when his team started to gather, that's when he started to act tough. So if Jeff McNeil would have sucker punched him on the ground, he would have got killed for it, because you're sucking and punching a grown man in the back of the head. If Rhys Hoskins probably would have got up and looked at him and maybe got into his face, I think Jeff McNeil would have probably socked him. But because I don't think Jeff McNeil is a dirty type of player, if he would have sucker punched him on the ground, there would have been a huge problem. People would have been like, "Oh, you're punching a man when he's down on the ground." I think that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Jeff McNeil, he should have done the sharpshooter on his ass. Let's go. Honestly, man, I'm telling you. Listen, I mean, Jeff McNeil should have just started pummeling on him, because this team needs some type of crazy spark. The brawl was cool and everything like that on opening day, but it just felt like, oh, well, oh, look, it's Jeff McNeil again. Here's the problem. It seems like the team kind of goes through the motions too much and never provides that energy or that spark. When we got hit 500 times last year, where is this team stepping up for one another? I like that they ran out of the dugout afterwards, and it was nice to see on opening day, but it didn't provide a spark. You know why? Because they didn't do nothing. Jeff McNeil didn't sucker punch him. Jeff McNeil was just yelling and screaming and pointing like a 2-year-old. Do something about it. I don't care who you would have punched. When the bench is cleared, just punch somebody. Ray Knight his ass. Do something.
Yes.
Honestly, it just continues to be the same problem. Somebody's got to provide a spark here. And if it needs to be somebody sucker punching somebody or throwing at somebody or stepping up in a big spot, something needs to happen with this team, because this team is boring as shit. I'm sorry, but they are. There's not a moment in the game where I'm like, oh, this team might win. This team, here we go. Even after the Beatty home run, I felt like they might have had a chance, but we had to wait for Brett Beatty to come off the bench to shock the world and hit a 3-run homer. You can't have this with this team. Oh God, it's killing me.
They have right now. They have the same spark that they had when Jonathan Aruiz was on the team. That's how boring, like you said, this team has been.
Yeah,
same way that they have been playing. So it's frustrating. And the only positive, Francisco Alvarez, definite positive. Marte was fine. Pete Alonso was fine, obviously, but getting to see Edwin Diaz back on Saturday, to me, I really feel like he's the heart and soul of that team. You see him come out. The team is down by 2 runs. It's been a frustrating day all around, and the fans are I feel like he's the most beloved Met right now. You see him come out. He gets through the inning fine. Not his greatest, but nice to see him get in there because he had so much rest from here to spring training. But what were your thoughts getting to see Edwin Diaz? Because you and I were both at the park, and I would just want to know how you felt about that.
Yeah, I was excited. It felt like the energy was in the ballpark again. Even with the Edwin Diaz shutting it down, and we had a chance in the 9th, it was great. It brought back, I had goosebumps, to be honest with you. I felt good. I'm like, oh, all right, this is the energy that we needed. And it's nice to see Edwin Diaz back. It'd be nice if the Mets give him more opportunities this year to make it exciting. But Jeff was just saying that I'm having Ibby issues with the camera. Yeah, I am. I apologize. When I get pumped up and excited and emotional, I kind of knock my camera out sometimes, and I got to go back to the fuzzy laptop camera. But hey, listen, that's what we do, right? We're passionate about it. But Yeah, I apologize for the camera, but yeah, it was great to see Edwin Diaz back. I hope that we're in our winning ways, hopefully in 2024, to make it exciting, because the Diaz dominance in 2022 wouldn't have been as fun with the trumpets if the Mets weren't winning. It would have been, the LOL Mets trying to do something to excite the fan base because the on-field play sucks. That was the reason why Diaz and the trumpets were so popular nationally, because the Mets were winning. If the Mets were a 500 ball club and not very good, the Diaz and the trumpets would have been locally exciting for the fan base, but not nationally exciting. And everybody plays the trumpets everywhere now. So, I hope the winning comes with the excitement of Edwin Diaz, because having one of the best closers in baseball is pointless if you can't win ball games and can't bridge a lead to him. Because we've seen him in a non-save situation. The Mets were down. We didn't even get to see him in a save situation in 3 games at Citi Field when everybody couldn't wait for a situation like that. We're gonna have night games with the Tigers. It would be nice to see those sexy new LED lights that are gonna be flickering, and with with Timmy's trumpet and all that fun stuff, and the trumpets going loud with a lead going into the ninth. That's what I want to see. I want that. I want to see the sexy new LED lights we put on there. Like, we didn't even get to see that. I know it was daytime and they were day games, but man, it kind of took a little bit away because the Mets weren't bringing out Edwin Diaz to save the game. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, we need to give Edwin Diaz some work because he hasn't pitched in a week. Like, that was the reason why. Like, it was great to see. It gave me goosebumps again, but that's all it did.
I don't know if I have any night games a part of my plan this season. A lot of them are during the day. Even the Saturday games, I've pretty much 4 o'clock, 1 o'clock games. So I don't know if I have any day games. And then my next game will be the Doc Gooden retirement 2 Sundays from now. Shout out to 101 people watching this live stream right now. I can't thank you guys enough. Everyone's having a good time in the chat, even chatting with each other. It's awesome to see. If you haven't done so, please like this video. Also, please subscribe not only to Subway to Shea, but also Talkin Mets with Rob. He's got great content on his channel. He provides you with a lot of pregame stuff, and he's going to do some recaps. So make sure you're following his videos as well and following him on Twitter. This has been a fun show. We're officially going to get into the series preview with the Tigers shortly. I got to shout out Ibby. He's correct. Ibby said that me and Ibby almost wrestled on the 500 level in front of our wives just to get this team going, just to get some kind of spark going. But obviously it wasn't going to help that team on Saturday with how freaking cold it was. But yeah, man, let's get into this this series preview here. I got the pitching matchups, the pitching probables I'm going to pull up here. So tomorrow night, Sean Manaea against Reese Olson. We're going to have Adrian Hauser take on Casey Mize on Tuesday. Jose Quintana comes back to the mound on Wednesday against Tariq Skubal, who had a really good game his first time around. And Detroit is 3-0 to start the season. Makes sense that the Mets would have to play Detroit when they're 3-0. Young and upcoming team, like you've mentioned before. Which of these matchups are you looking forward to the most?
Game 1. I can't wait to see Manaea. I think he's going to be really good for us. I know we said that about Severino and others, but I think Sean Manaea is going to probably be the best of the bunch in the first 4 games. I can't wait to see that matchup. I think Olson's another one of them good young pitchers. I think it's going to be a good matchup. The Mets are in trouble. I'm not going to lie. Like, they got 3 young starters with the Tigers that have pitched well, and Skubal in his first outing was just outstanding. The Mets have a tall task here. The Tigers are up. They're 3-0. They're coming in confident. The Mets are down in the dumps right now. There won't be nobody at the ballpark at Citi Field because it's going to be cold, rainy, and the Mets are 0-3. And the fans are ready to boo. Like, let's completely be honest with that. Like, on a Sunday, Easter, there was literally not a lot of people in the ballpark today. And you heard the boo birds like crazy. It's going to happen quickly. The Mets need to get a win here, and they need to start tomorrow. on Monday because it's gonna be a long April if you go 1-5 or God forbid 0-6 going out of this series and then heading on the road. But Shea is really what I'm looking at here because it takes one game to take a deep breath after you get a win and be like, all right, we got that win that we've been looking for, and then let's go. So
Yeah.
First game I think is extremely important, but the last pitching matchup of the series, Screwball has been pitched really well in his first outing, and I want to see Quintana bounce back. So that could be another good pitching matchup in the series.
I looked at this roster here, especially against Manaya in game one. Oh, good old friend, Javi Baez, 400 average against him. Only 5 at bats, but he's got 2 RBIs, OPS 1.029. So you're going to have to watch out for him if he's in the lineup against Sean Manaya. You also got, I think it's Riley Green in center field, right? Is that yes, Riley Green in center field also has hit decently off of Sean Manaya, and Veerling out there in right field has hit well soon. Is there anyone in this lineup that the Tigers have that, gives you, a little bit of worries? Like we'll see a little bit of ownership like Rhys Hoskins did.
It'll probably be Javi Baez because, Javi Baez is the guy can be about an 086 and he just finds a reason to be annoying in a series and he'll probably kill us. But Riley Green, not only because I have him in fantasy, I actually really like him. He's a guy that can be sneaky good in a series. He was good in the first series this year, in the opening series. But Riley Green's another one. He's a tough out, and I think him and Baez are going to be the major problems in this lineup. I'm concerned because I really thought the Mets were going to take care of business against the Brewers, and I thought this Tiger series, even before the season started, was going to be tough because they're the young up-and-coming team, and they're coming in with confidence. I'm worried about this. I said in every one of my predictions for the Brewers series, Brewers games, I thought the Mets were going to win. I thought they were going to sweep the Brewers. Honestly, going into the opening game, and opening day, because I was worried about the Tiger series, and now I'm extremely worried about it. Like, the Mets are in trouble, but Riley Green and Javi Baez, you got to look out for those two guys for sure.
Shea parking lot, game room dad, good to see you, my friend. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. Hope the family's well. He's saying Torkelson is dangerous, Spencer Torkelson, as well as Jeff Cohen, to worry about him. Last season for Torkelson, 31 home runs, 94 RBIs. He'll be a tough at bat as well. And who was it here? I think it was, I know it was Doug Barnes. Yeah, Doug Barnes says, can Manaya go 6, please? Yeah, you know what? It'd be nice to see a pitcher go. And the funny thing is, that's what all we want now is to see a starting pitcher go 6 innings. I can't believe that it has come down to this, where we have to beg for a starter to go 5 to 6 innings. McGill couldn't do it today, obviously, because he got hurt. Sevy was just not good yesterday. Quintana, had his, spurts of being good and not, but just could not finish the 5 innings. I mean, that final inning that he was in, he got the first out on 1 pitch. Yeah. And then from there on, he struggled a little bit. But the thing that frustrates me is with Jeremy Hefner. You see a couple of guys on base with Quintana in the mound, and where in the world is Jeremy Hefner? You literally have 3 mound visits, and Milwaukee's just using them, and it's helping their pitchers out. Where is Jeremy Hefner? Why is he not? And this is the same problem he's had over the last couple of years, where he'll wait until there's this big inning where they give up runs, and then he comes to check up out on the pitcher. Prevent that from happening. Calm Quintana down so that we can get out of this and he can go his 5 innings. I just haven't seen anything from Jeremy Hefner. I don't even know if he checked in on Severino on Saturday. It was all a blur. Saturday was all a blur, but I don't remember him coming out to check in on Severino.
Yeah, Hefner's becoming a big problem now, and a lot of questions is coming towards him now because apparently around Major League Baseball, he's considered a really good pitching coach, and like the Mets are afraid to lose him because a lot of teams like Jeremy Hefner, and I don't see why. Because who has gotten better under the tutelage of Jeremy Hefner? Nobody. And that's the problem. He comes out at bad times. He doesn't come out at certain times. There was spots, like you just said, it with Severino, with Quintana, just to give him a breather. With the pitch clock now and the lack of step offs and everything like that, you got to use that to your advantage. When you're a pitching coach, you got to give your pitcher a breather. If they struggle and they lost their control, come out to the mound. Jeremy Hefner is been here between 3 different regimes now, basically.
He has been absolutely Teflon.
Yeah,
Teflon. He has lasted we've got he came in with Callaway, right?
Oh, yep.
Callaway. Luis Rojas. Beltran was here for a hot second, so I don't want to count him. But even with Buck, I think he's been here longer than Dan Warthen now.
Yeah. It seems like it. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense because, and there's the other problem. Like, maybe it's just Stearns giving Hefner one more chance. And, again, around baseball, they like Jeremy Hefner for some reason. And
that's all we hear. Even from Andy Martino, if the Mets fire Jeremy Hefner, someone's going to pick him up real quick. That's the same thing I heard about Luis Rojas. Don't fire Luis Rojas or he's going to get picked up real quick and be manager somewhere else. That's all we hear about these guys.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue right now. Somebody's got to perform well under Jeremy Hefner, right? You got a lot of guys in contract years, a lot of guys that had bad seasons last year. Where is that pitcher that says, look, Jeremy Hefner got his hands on him, fixed him up, made him a better pitcher or what he was before? And then you give credit, because there's nobody that I know of that, except for when he had a veteran rotation with Bassett and Walker and DeGrom and all those guys, where Jeremy Hefner, all he had to do was just sit there and let those guys do the job. And Jeremy Hefner got credit for that for some reason. This is when he is going to get watched a lot, because you got Severino, you got Minaya, Hauser, guys like that, where you can make these guys better. And with the pitching lab and the greatness of Jeremy Hefner that none of the Met fans understand why, you got to see something from these guys, because if Severino Minaya has a bad season, is it just them, or is it Jeremy Hefner not doing his job once again?
And you may have a point there, because, you go back to 2022 and like you said, he never had to come out of the dugout because DeGrom wouldn't have wanted him to. Scherzer definitely does not want him to. And you have a mostly veteran staff. Here, these guys need help, man. They need help. And if you can alleviate for 5 seconds, because, you got the pitch clock going on, they have to set, they have to get ready, and there's no timeout for the pitcher. So, get out there, give him a breath or two, try to calm him down, and maybe Quintana would have gotten through the 5 innings and maybe pitched another one if possible. But, that's the only frustration that I had with Hefner. Carlos does make a good point. You think about Senga and the transition. That has pretty much been, Jeremy Hefner's calling card right now. Yeah. But you think of McGill, you think of can he come through with Drew Smith and keep Drew Smith pitching well, Budo and all these kids. That's going to be those kids. If he's still around here, that's going to be his legacy. Yeah. Is going to be those kids, the Scotts and the Vassals and Dom Hamill, and to see what he does with Shaw Minaya and Luis Severino, if he could turn those guys around, and Quintana, because you know what, those guys are fighting for their lives right now, because this is their last year of their contract. If they don't pitch well, they're not going to get any big deals when it comes to the offseason. So they could be, pitching for their major league lives here. So I need to see a little bit more from Jeremy Hefner. He says that you made a good point, Carlos. This year is the real test for Hefner. The rotation depends on him to make the best of it. This is it for him. If he fails, he needs to go. And I totally agree with that, man. I totally agree that something needs to happen if, Hefner does not deliver here. And I hope that, David Stearns is paying as close attention as possible to this whole situation moving forward. I think it was Shea parking lot, who brought up, what he wants to see as the pitching matchup. And I agree. I think that Hauser is the key. He needs to be that workhorse. He's going to go up against Casey Mize on Tuesday. And let me know if you agree with this. I go through this with everybody. I have compared Adrian Hauser to Rick Reed. I think he's that type of Rick Reed type pitcher. Back end of the rotation, he's going to give you those grinded out games. He'll go like 11-5 or 12-7 or something like that. I think that's something that we can see from Adrian Hauser. He didn't pitch great during spring, but he didn't pitch awful. He had one really good game that he had one bad pitch where he gave up a 3-run home run. But outside of that, that game that he pitched, he did very well in. I hope that he can, succeed. I'm looking at the lineup against him, and there's not been really too many at bats, so he's going in fresh against this Detroit roster. Casey Mize, on the other hand, Casey Mize either not really. DJ Stewart only batted against him 4 times, Joey Wendell 2 times, and Lindor and Bader 2 times. Now I go to the third game, which is Quintana coming back on the mound against Skubal. Starling Marte is going to be key here. 6.67 average. It's only, with 3 at bats, but if he continues to hit well, especially the way he's hitting right now, that could be something to look out for. Yeah. Quintana has batted against some of these, has pitched against these guys: Torkelson, Urshela, Vierling, Kelly. Canna has gotten 12 at bats, but not batted very well. So the Mets have an opportunity here to kind of rewrite what happened this weekend. The pitching, I thought, outside of Severino, I thought was okay. I thought opening day, they did very well. It was the bats. Tuesday, obviously, Severino had a rough time. Adam Ottavino had a rough time. And today, McGill was pitching okay. And, they went to Yohan Ramirez, and everything was, it was just okay the last 2 days. It's been the hitting mostly. So what is the key for you going into this series, for the Mets to turn it around? Is it just to see the hitting find their stride?
I think it's a combination of the guys, the rotation given a little bit of length, because we saw what happened, how it was a disaster last year with this team where they didn't go 6 innings until May. You can't have that because you're gonna kill your bullpen in April. So I think it's key for the Manayas, the Hausers, especially, to go 5+ innings at the very least, 5 2/3, maybe 6. You need a little bit of length from these guys because you can't, through 2 series, destroy your bullpen, and then you're in trouble. And then you're really in trouble because now you really need your rotation to go even further into the game, and that's probably unlikely at this early stage of the year. But yeah, the bats got to get going, right? This was the problem last year as well with this lineup. They would have one game in a series where they show up, and then the rest of the games they would score 1 or 2 runs. You're not going to win ball games that way. You can't give up 3 runs and lose a ball game. You got to win that game. The pitching kept you in it. You got to win that game. And the lineup's got to show me something here. Again, we're talking about it again. Somebody's got to step up here, right? I mean, look at the guys that are performing well. Marte, Alvarez. Those guys should be the guys that, yes, we're talking about. Wow, look at the game that he had. But again, 3 for 33 with the core. These guys got to be better, right? Alonso hit a late home run in game 2. Great. But he came up with runners on base just like Lindor and McNeil and Nimmo. And all they did was either pop up or ground out. You got to be the run producers. You got to be the spark to this team. The lineup, I'm more concerned about than the rotation or the pitching in general with this team. And that's crazy to say, considering that the part of the team that you should be confident in at this point now is the lineup. It should be the core. But that's the thing I'm most worried about. How am I fine with basically a revamped rotation and a revamped bullpen? I'm comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with the lineup. I don't trust the lineup. Like, that's the biggest concern I'm going to have. So if I have to choose number one, it's definitely the lineup, man.
Yeah, I think that, especially when they're constantly moving everybody up and down the lineup, the way that they have been doing. Two things that I would like to see. Maybe it gives them a spark. Why don't you throw Joey Wendell in there and not take out Brett Beatty? Leave Brett Beatty at third. Put Joey Wendell at second and take out Jeff McNeil for a game. You could throw Joey Wendell at the bottom of the lineup with Harrison Bader and see if those two guys can, spark up some at bats. And you know what? I think it might be time, even if it's for only a week. I think it's time to put Francisco Alvarez in the 4-hole.
Yeah, I said that. They should have done an opening day. Like, the guy breeds confidence. Like, he's not afraid of the moment. He would thrive in that fourth hole, I believe. I don't know why they're concerned to do that, but he shows you that nothing gets him flustered, and he's batting well. Like, after game one, I was like, all right, they're messing around with the lineup a little bit. They really don't know what to do in that 4-hole right now until JD Martinez comes. Put Alvarez there. What's the worst that can happen? He can bat 0 for 4 just like everybody else you're putting in the fourth spot. Like try it out. It might actually work. He might be the protection Pete Alonso needs over the next week and a half until JD Martinez comes. They don't mind experimenting with guys that shouldn't be in the cleanup spot, like Tyron Taylor and Jeff McNeil. Try somebody else. What is the worst that can happen? It can't be worse than the two guys you put there the last 3 games, because it doesn't make sense. Like, tomorrow, if the game actually plays tomorrow because of the weather, I want to see somebody other than Jeff McNeil in the cleanup spot. Like, if Jeff McNeil's there again, I honestly don't know what they're doing. Their analytics departments are morons if they're using analytics to say that Jeff McNeil should be in that spot. But yeah, Alvarez needs to be the cleanup guy. He should have been it from opening day. Give the kid the confidence, showing him, hey, we trust you in this spot. Wouldn't that benefit the kid even more that you believe in him as well, instead of putting him in the irrelevant 6 or 7 spot where Jeff McNeil should be right now? And it kills me every single time with just 3 games. I'm frustrated with a lineup. How can I be frustrated with a lineup 3 games into the season? Like, I looked at the lineup today. I spoke to my dad. I go, you see this lineup, Dad? He goes, yeah, the bullshit Jeff McNeil in cleanup spot. Like, when you're questioning the lineup 3 games into the season, there's something wrong. And Jeff McNeil and the cleanup spot, just take him out. Make us happy before the game starts until the misery happens on the field. Like, I mean, that's what needs to be done. Put Alvarez in the cleanup spot. He deserves it. He's been one of the best hitters over the first 3 games of the season. Give him some credit. Grant him and say, hey, we see what you're doing here. Let's give you a chance. Why not? Now we're afraid to give kids at bats and put them in big spots. Wasn't that the point? Do it. Give him the opportunity yet.
Look, Pete Alonso has hit well despite having Jeff McNeil behind him. Yep. And, how long it takes. I heard it was going to be the Cincy series. I think it's going to take a little longer to get JD Martinez up here. Take whatever time you need to get ready. He's not going to play over 150 games. Last year, he played 113 games and hit well. So why not dabble with Francisco Alvarez in the cleanup hole? Let him learn. Hey, we're going to give you this spot right now. We want to see what you can do. JD Martinez is coming up. When he comes up, we're going to move you back down in the order. And then have JD Martinez, be that mentor to him, because this is only a 1-year deal. So the fact that, next year, maybe Francisco Alvarez is the cleanup batter,
Yeah. And it's like, the Mets right now, I guess they're thinking if they're going to wait for JD Martinez, and they're going to bring him up during the Atlanta series. It just feels like that's what they're going to do. So let's put all the pressure in the world on JD Martinez. And in the Atlanta series, God knows what the Mets record's going to be. Like, give the kid a chance. Maybe you might hit lightning in a bottle here, and that 3-4 Alonso Alvarez might actually spark this lineup a little bit here. And maybe it's the best thing in the world. And then when JD Martinez comes, now you got a 3-4-5 with Alonso, Alvarez, and Martinez, where you're like, oh, damn, I don't want to pitch to none of these guys. Because right now, it's amazing that Alonso is looking good at the plate right now. Because if I'm a pitcher, why am I pitching to him? I'd intentionally walk him every single time. Because you really think I'm scared of Tyrone Taylor and Jeff McNeil? No, absolutely not. I just don't get it. Like, there's no fear from a pitcher looking at the Mets lineup after Alonso. And that's the problem right now. Like, I think Alvarez put some fear in the eyes of a pitcher. If you're behind Alonso, because you're not just gonna, pitch around Alonso and hope Alonso swings at bad pitches and he's still performing well. You got to put that fear in that pitcher. We're saying, oh man, if I walk Alonso, Alvarez can take me deep. But when Alvarez is batting 6th or 7th, it's irrelevant. So give the kid the chance. Why not? He's performing well. Give him the opportunity. The worst that can happen, he would be just as bad as the rest of the guys that you put in that spot. So let's go. Alvarez, cleanup spot. Let's go, Mendoza. Let's go.
Look, we even see the examples, right? Jeff McNeil comes up with the bases loaded, flies out.
Yep.
Alvarez comes up with no guys on, and he hits a home run. We could have had 4 RBIs instead of having those, that one home run. I think that it definitely has to be at a point for the rest of this time. Because, look, no McNeil can't do it. Tyrone Taylor can't do it. The guy that's supposed to be able to do it, DJ Stewart, kind of looks like Daniel Vogelback 2.0 right now. And he's struggling. He knows his time is almost up once JD Martinez is ready, because there's no possible way to carry the way DJ Stewart has been playing on this team so far. Just looking at pitches, striking out. You can't be having that. I mean, you need to earn your spot onto this roster, and I don't think DJ Stewart has done that. I didn't even think, even with his 2-week span last season, I wasn't a big fan of giving him a spot. It was a fine that they signed him to the 1-year deal that they did, but I wasn't, fine with them just giving him a roster spot because he had a good 2 weeks.
Yeah. And, again, DJ Stewart is lightning in a bottle with no pressure on him. The Mets had a ton of injuries, so why not DJ Stewart? He's a failed prospect in the Orioles system. He's never shown any signs of being any good. He had a couple of weeks of being good with the Mets with nothing going on, with 10,000 seats and, fans in the seats. And he became a fan favorite. And I'm fine giving him, rewarding the guy for performing well and giving him a 1-year deal. But he's what he is. He is a guy who is a failed prospect that's not very good. I had a couple of good weeks, and you're using him and giving him a roster spot that maybe somebody else deserves. I think everybody was probably on board with, hey, all right, Vientos is not going to be, could be why not let Vientos be the DH until JD Martinez comes back? Give him the opportunity to keep a roster spot once JD Martinez comes back. Maybe Zach Short goes back to the minors and he keeps Vientos on the roster. But it makes no sense. Like, DJ Stewart wasn't better than Mark Vientos in spring. So whatever the reason why they didn't keep Mark Vientos, put him on the opening day roster, didn't make sense. Whatever the reason was, I'm assuming they had a reason to put DJ Stewart over him or Zach Short over him. But it makes no sense at this point. Like, DJ Stewart, I think, is a week away from either being off this team completely or back in the minors, in my opinion.
I think they're going to stash him back in the minors because he has the he has the option, and you just don't want to, waste that and get rid of that if you don't have to, and you need bodies and all that stuff. Who was it? Shea Parking Lot mentioned this as his lineup: Nimmo, McNeil, Lindor, Alvarez, Alonso, Martinez, Marte, Beatty, and Bader. In the perfect world, where these guys are hitting on all cylinders. And this goes back to what you said earlier on with McNeil batting 300. If he's not batting 300 and he's struggling the way he is, I can't afford having him that high in the order. The same thing goes with Starling Marte. Starling Marte is the perfect leadoff or second hitter. And unfortunately, we don't know how Marte is going to handle this full season, whether he's going to be 2022 Marte or 2023 Marte. And without that, I feel like those guys have to be pushed towards the back of the order, and you want to give your best at bats to Nimmo, Lindor, Alvarez, Alonso, even Martinez, and stash those guys at the back as much as it stinks. But if the world was perfect, and the way Rob said earlier, this guy was hitting 300, McNeil would be higher up in the order. He's just, there's something missing right now from his game. He gets way too frustrated. He's struggling. He swings at the first pitch way too much. And that's a guy you don't want when you want, you have Nimmo working the count. You got Lindor and Alvarez and all these guys working the count. You don't want McNeil going after the first pitch like he always does.
Yeah, and I wonder if McNeil is a big culprit of the shift. Like, I wonder if that's ever since they changed the shift now, McNeil has not been good. And I wonder if that's getting into his head now, where he thinks he has to be perfect at the plate now to get a hit. And maybe that's affecting him. I mean, that's maybe a lame excuse. I'm not trying to give excuses to Jeff McNeil, because I am actually done with Jeff McNeil. But maybe it is just that the shift is in his head now. And, where they used to shift him, a little bit more before the rule change, now they have to, position themselves a little differently, and it might affect them where he's not hitting that ball in a hole anymore, where there was a hole a couple of years ago. Maybe that's the case, but yeah, you know what I'm thinking right now? I'm thinking go back to 2022, right? Marte's hitting well right now. Put him back in the 2-hole. Have Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, and Alonso 1, 2, 3, 4. It was successful in 2022. Alonso and Marte are hitting right now. Maybe it sparks the Lindor and Nimmo situation with them two between Marte and Alonso, who is hitting right now. Maybe go back to that, because it was successful in 2022. Because of injury, it wasn't successful last year. But maybe you go back to that for a couple of games and see if that works, because there's three guys hitting: Marte, Alvarez, and Alonso. You want those guys as far up in the order as possible. You want to get them the most at bats. If you can get Alvarez behind Alonso, perfect. You battle Alvarez fifth in that situation. Now you have Nimmo and Lindor, who are struggling right now between Marte, Alonso, and Alvarez, who are hitting right now. It might get them to see better pitches as well. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah. You know what? At this point, you might as well give Marte his opportunity back, since he's pretty much been playing well throughout this whole series. It worked in 2022, like you said. Why not see if we can get that spark back and get the Mets going here? So yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, like, what can you lose at this point, right? Like, what do you have to lose giving? Yeah, it can't get worse. I think one of the problems that the Mets see, and I don't know if this happens with every roster, but like, man, they keep changing the lineups every single day, moving this guy up, moving that guy down. I mean, do you remember like 2000, 2006? Did they move David Wright all over the order? Did Mike Piazza move in the order? Jose Reyes? No, they weren't messing with these guys. Beltran wasn't all over the place. Delgado was batting. Like, we're messing around with the lineups way too much because of this analytics.
Yeah, and you can only go back. You can go back to 2022, right? 109 games, I believe. I think I looked at it because I was curious with all these stupid lineup changes. 109 games. 1, 2, 3, 4 was Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, and Alonso in 2022. Buck didn't move them four guys at all, unless it was giving guys days off or an injury to Marte late in the year. He kept that four guys exactly where they were, and it was successful, and it helped the lineup when it got deeper in the lineup, when you making lineup changes for matchups and stuff like that. Maybe, and I think this is where analytics gets a little crazy.
Analytics.
Oh God, man, it's like the boogeyman under the bed. I swear to God, I hate analytics. Like,
Carlos Ramos hates analytics. Believe in the Mets, who's also a podcast. Make sure you're subscribing
yes,
to
sir.
on
Yes.
YouTube. They're my guy Nick Durst. He's really good. Has a good podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that as well. But yeah, man, the analytics, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, analytics is, it needs to be a part of the game, but I think a lot of teams, including the Mets, are overusing it to the point where it's getting ridiculous now how they're using it. Like they're coming up with an obscure stat to like give a reason why this guy is here in the lineup, or why this guy is playing today, or why this guy is playing this position. Like, it's like, stop it. Like, baseball for 100 years was concerned about average, RBIs, home runs, and even if you want to put on base percentage as well. Like, we don't have to go that deep into analytics to explain why a player is good or not in certain spots of the lineup, or just a good player. Like, we have eyes, and you have eyes. I
Yeah,
have
man.
eyes. Met fans have eyes. Baseball fans have eyes. You can tell when a player is good and where they're performing well, right? Everybody, except for 10 people in the Mets organization, was like, what the F is Jeff McNeil doing in the cleanup spot? Nobody can give you an answer. Like, I tried. I was looking. I was like, what am I missing? Like, did I not see something in spring, or did I not see something in McNeil's career? Like, did he become a power hitter overnight that I missed? Like, did I sleep through a season where he hit 40 home runs? No. Like, when you start questioning that, you start to question the organization and the analytics and what they're using, because through 3 games, clearly whatever analytics they're using isn't working. Now, things can change, right? If the Mets are playing well and they took 2 out of 3, nobody would be talking about analytics. But you're getting this, when you lose, questions start appearing. We start questioning the organization. We start questioning the players, the manager, the GM, the president of baseball ops, Steve Cohen. There's some people on X saying, "Oh, I wish the Wilpons were back." Which, if you say that, there's something wrong with you. But yeah, like, that's what you get when you lose, questions.
Yeah, man. That's the big problem. Hey, I'm right. Podcast saying. But Rob, what about the barrel rate? Barrel rate, and then also we have Douglas Barnes with exit velo. That's the analytics, right? The exit velo, the barrel. You know what? Exit velo bothers me so much because you can hit it as hard as possible, but if that's a fly out, it doesn't even matter at that point in time. Like I get the analytics, I get it, but like I don't think it should be 100% like used the way they that everyone is using it now. That's why, I liked the movie Moneyball, but as I watched that movie, I watched that like in preparation for the Mets to make Billy Beane the president back in 2021, or when they wanted to bring him in, and then he kind of declined. But after watching that, I'm like, I don't really want him, because the way that he did, like, obviously that works for an Oakland team, the way what he did in 2002, but they never won anything. Like, they never won a
Great
World
point.
Series.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people, like, it works in certain aspects, and it might work during the season, but when it gets down to the blood and guts of a playoff series, and you got to get the feel of the game. When you take the feel of the game and your gut decision out of the game, and just use a book with a nerd in the back room that is crunching numbers, who's never played a sport in their lives, and they're telling you, but you're watching something different, but the analytics tell you something different. It's a bad combination. Sometimes the feel of the game is all you need. Like, all these people have been in baseball all their lives. You get the feel of the game. Like, when you know somebody's hot, or you think that, like, we've seen this all the time around baseball. A guy is hot, went 3 for 4, and even Buck talked about it in one of the podcasts, where he was like, Nimmo went 3 for 4, hit a triple, and then an analytics guy came to Buck, who knows more baseball than almost anybody, saying, "Hey, we should shut down. We should give Nimmo a day off after his 3 for 4 and great game, because he ran too much." Like, what? What the hell is going on with baseball? And it's a problem around baseball. Look, The Rays do it right with analytics, but they're another team. They win games, but when it comes down to the most important games, they don't win nothing either. Great, they win 90 games, they win a division, but they get embarrassed in the playoffs. Like, besides the World Series run in the pandemic year, which I give no credit to any team during that year, they haven't won nothing either. So clearly analytics work to a point, but at some point you got to use your gut feeling, your feel of the game to make decisions. And when you start taking that out of the game, it's robotic at this point. And that's the frustrating part about it, because the Mets lineup feels robotic. Like, it doesn't seem like somebody's putting pen to paper to make a lineup. It's seeming like, oh, we printed out a lineup. The number says this, the bat rate, the spin rate, the dish rate, my ass rate, every rate is telling me what this lineup should be. And I'm sorry, there is no analytics telling me that Jeff McNeil should be a cleanup hitter. And I'm not trying to kill Jeff McNeil like he was the only problem over these 3 games, but he came up with, I believe, 9 runners on base and 6 in scoring position and popped up every single time. Like, something's wrong. And until I see it different, I'm going to question the analytics, at least of the Mets, but question analytics overall in baseball.
Jeff Cohen makes a good point. Just get rid of the iPads in the dugout. I mean, we saw it in 2021. Remember, they were just like looking at the iPads the whole time. They weren't even like paying attention to the game. And then you bring in a guy like Scherzer, you bring in Bassett, old school type pitching. They didn't have any of that. They were conversating, they were talking about it and making sure that these players were ready. McGill was better when he was doing that. And then you look at what the analytics are doing now. They trying to put this on the pitchers to keep them healthy. Like, I've never seen more pitchers hurt nowadays than back then.
They pitch less, get hurt more. It makes no sense.
Carlos Ortiz saying it's called the eye test. Shea Parking Lot saying, where was that? Rob Asray is now going to be analyzed.
Do I get commission off of that when they use it? Like,
I would hope, right? I mean, charge him for that. Duran Rivera saying Rangers won with Bruce Bochy and Baker won in Houston the year before. 3 managers that got by feel. Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's true. And Buck was on his way to that. And we're starting to hear how the analytics kind of took over while he was managing. Before we wrap up here, 120 people in here in the chat having a good time. There was one question, and it was by Lane Kerner that I want to bring up. This is totally out of the blue here. Where was that question? Where was it? Trying to find it. All right. How do you feel about the Mets' new black uniforms? So, I don't really have an issue with them getting rid of the white. I like the white. It just reminds me of, 2000 through that 2006 era. Actually, my favorite one is just the New York in black.
Yeah.
That was my favorite one. That was the only jersey that I had as a kid for the longest time as a Mets jersey. No name, just the New York on there. But I don't really hate the way they changed the jersey. The thing that bothers me, and I don't know if you got to go to the store or not, but dang, everything is so freaking expensive now.
Oh, man.
The hats are $45. A t-shirt, not just the player name t-shirts, but like just regular t-shirts now are close to $50. And like, you're not paying for the Mets anymore. You're paying for the swoosh because Nike is the partnership, with all MLB teams. Man, I'm like, I don't even know if I could buy anything from here right now. It's just ridiculous prices.
It is. And it's funny because on my pregame show earlier, I had the opening day shirt that I bought. And I was skeptical about buying it because I looked at the price. It was $42 for a thing that has a red, white, and blue diamond, says opening day in bad bold lettering, and it has the Mets and the Brewers logo. Like, there's nothing to the shirt. Like, I literally can buy it from the flea market if I wanted to and print it out. Like, that's the way it feels. And because, like you said, the swoosh, it's so expensive. Like, I bought the batting practice hat, and it was $45. Like I'm a sucker, because I like to buy those new hats. I'm a hat collector. I have a ton of hats. I love wearing hats. But yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, it's getting to the point where it's like, I'm glad the tickets you can still get on the secondary market for $5. like I'm glad that's still there because like it's getting ridiculous now. Like if you're not like if you don't spend $100 at a game, like you're gonna die of thirst. Like it's that bad. Like I'm a souvenir cup collector as well. I'll buy 2 or 3 of them, and I every time I go to a game, I buy some. Like it gets expensive, and I feel bad, for people who would want to go to a game, but yeah, they can get in the ballpark, but you have to make your poor child starve because it takes $45 to feed a kid, and that's just a chicken tenders and fries that are stale and a soda that's watery. Like it gets to the point where it's really frustrating. And the kid wants the new black jersey with no white outline. That's $135.
And
So
the material
it's
is
bad.
so thin, man. I know that they were trying to help out the players. If any of you guys go out to City Field, do me a favor, go into the store and touch the jersey and feel the jersey.
It's not
It
good.
is so freaking thin. Like the players are sweating and are drenched. The jersey is automatically drenched. It's like these guys are playing tennis and they have to switch shirts at
Yeah,
like after the match is over.
the Yankee road jerseys look terrible when they sweat. Like you seen Aaron Judge soaked jersey, like it looked like he went through a wash machine. Like it's so bad. It's so bad. But with the black jerseys, I'm not like it goes back to my childhood with the white outline. So I grew up with those jerseys. Like you said, the New York Road. I love those jerseys. Like I grew up with those black jerseys. Like seeing the black jersey without the white outline in person doesn't look that bad. It looks pretty good. I'm
Yeah,
not gonna lie.
in person it looks
It
pretty
looks
good.
better. Yeah, when I saw the picture, I'm like, ooh, like, ooh, man. But yeah,
Yeah.
in person, it looks a lot better. I want to see how it actually looks when the Mets first wear them on the players, and it always looks better on the players than guys like us. Like let's be honest. But we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely a problem. Expensive as hell for no reason. The quality sucks. And I'm not a big jersey wearer, but like I bought a Lindor jersey. I went to the MLB shop before Nike took over, and I got the Lindor custom jersey, and the quality is amazing. And I spent
Yeah.
$120 on it, and I got it from the MLB shop. And I go to, like you said, I felt the material. I'm like, it's like paper, like
Mhm.
it's sad, and it costs more. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Junior Swingman, great point. Bring back Russell Athletic, bring back
Oh yeah,
Majestic. That's my black jersey. That New York black is in Majestic. If you want to get like the real deal jerseys, I'd say go through Mitchell and Ness. So
very good.
I have bought all 3 Piazza jerseys. He's got the orange one from spring training, he's got the black jersey, and then he's got the blue New York jersey from like 1998 or 99 when they were doing that. And then on top of that, I got a strawberry 86. I got Keith and Doc jerseys, all for the price of what I saw one of those, what they consider to be authentic, although mine has the stitching on it. Mine has the actual stitching on the jersey, whereas these are heat pressed. Like those should not be that expensive. I don't care if the
No.
number's on the front now. That should not be that expensive. Even the patch is like, it's not even stitching patch. It's one of those heat patches.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
sad. It's sad. It's really sad. Like I know they were trying to make it more comfortable, more cooling for the player, but like, I mean, it feels like when they sweat, it's gonna melt off their body. Like it's sad. It really is. Like I wish Under Armour would have got the contract because they were close to getting it before Nike and whatever reason Under Armour backed out. I think Under Armour would have done a great job with their quality. Because their Under Armour has really good quality stuff. But we got to deal with Nike, who didn't even want to deal with the product and give it to Fanatics, who we already know. If you ever like, I bought the 2022 postseason Met stuff from Fanatics, and it's garbage. Like I bought a shirt, I can't wear it no more because I dried it once, and it went from a large to basically a medium. Like it's crazy, man. It really is. Sucks, man.
Yeah, I think that the MLB is going to regret doing this 10-year contract with Nike because like you said, Nike takes it, hands it off to Fanatics, and Fanatics is well known for the heat patching, and like you could see it in hockey jerseys. Unless you're getting an authentic hockey jersey, like you're going to see the heat patch on it, and it just doesn't look nice. I mean, if you're going to do that, I'm okay with it as long as it's not more than what I would have bought for a stitching, an actual stitch jersey. Which, like, I don't buy jerseys of the players of today. I buy like the Legends jerseys. Like I said, I got Carter. I got all the 86 guys. I got all my Piazza jerseys because Piazza is my favorite player. And then I got a David Wright jersey from, back when the All-Star game was in Queens in 2013. And those are my Mets jerseys. And that's it. Like, anytime someone becomes a legend, I was hoping it was going to be DeGrom that I would get his jersey. He's gone. I'm not doing that. We'll see if one of these guys ever becomes something big. But even Junior Swingman, if Mitchell and Ness released an Edgardo Alfonso jersey, I will be on it like that.
Me
Like,
too.
I love Edgardo Alfonso. Ray Ordonez, get me Ray
That's my
Ordonez,
guy.
and I want that.
Yeah,
I know
Ray
that,
Ordonez is my guy.
I don't know if he's still in the chat, but Ibby bought a Ray Ordonez 0 jersey, not the one with 10, but 0. I want to see how that comes out, because if it comes out great, I'm gonna get one of those.
Where did he get that? eBay or somewhere?
I don't know where he got it. I'll have to ask him. But once it comes in, I got to see how it looks and stuff. Because if it's great, I'm gonna get one of those myself, and I'll let you know.
All right, perfect.
Under Armour would have been too tight for this fat guy. That's what Shea Parking Lot says. HSP podcast, like George Costanza suggested with the Yankees, should have made the uniform all cotton. that would have been something to see. That I do think of that sometimes when I think of these jerseys. But let's wrap it up there. Rob, it's been so much fun. Thank you for sticking around. I know I said we were going to do this for an hour, but the comments were, blowing up. We had 122 people in here. Make sure to let everyone know where to follow you on Twitter, whatever other social media apps you're on, and where they can get your show.
Absolutely. TMWR NYM on all the social media platforms. Talkin Mets with Rob. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already. And yeah, I do pre-game content. I'm gonna do series recaps, and I'm gonna do in-game live streams as well. And I will be me and Chris CP are gonna be doing the Pro Sports Fans app live streams coming up next week.
Nice.
So we're gonna be doing that as well. So make sure you tune in to all of that. So I appreciate it. And I don't care if it was 3 hours. It didn't matter. It's baseball talk. So it's always
you know what? We could have went 3 hours with what happened on this just crazy ass weekend. We could have definitely went 3 hours talking about Jeff McNeil batting fourth, not hitting Rhys Hoskins. We could have went like even more longer than that.
And look, when the Mets lose, there's a lot more to talk about with our fan base. When we win, we're like, oh, nice. Look at the performance. Great. Good game. All right. 20 minutes. See you later. Now, when it's going bad, there's so much to talk about. There's so many questions. And that's why these live streams are long. And I understand it. And I love it. I mean, I would like to win, but having conversations like this and get the opinion of you and everybody in the chat, it's so important now because, we all throw out great content. We all work our asses off at these channels. We all know it's not easy, but we love it. And we're passionate, and we know the chat and people in the chat are passionate as well. All we want is a winner, and that's all we can ask for.
Yep, we're all Met fans at the end of the day. All we have is each other and our fandom, this little Mets family that we have, and this content creator family that keeps growing. I got to see a lot of guys out on Saturday. Shea and Sons, obviously. Ibby was there. CP, who works with you, was there and will also be on this at some point. We'll be working together throughout the entire season, even into the off season. But like I said, Rob, thank you so much for being on here with me. Make sure you're following Rob and all his social medias. He just talked about it. Make sure you're following all those things. Please give this episode a like if you enjoyed it. I would really appreciate it. Also, subscribe to Subway to Shea, not only on YouTube, but also Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You'll see some of my podcast episodes. This won't be on a podcast. These series previews will be YouTube exclusive only, so make sure to check that out. We will come back on Thursday to preview the Cincinnati Reds series. I'll have another guest on for Thursday as well. The podcast will come out on Friday, and then I will be on the Mets Evening Brew at night, probably around 9 o'clock on Thursday as well, so make sure to check that out. But 122 people in here, nothing but love for you all. Everyone in the chat, nothing but love. Appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you Thursday for the preview against the Cincinnati Reds. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great week, everyone.
Let's go Mets.